Hey everybody, welcome to the SWICKtech Leading Business Podcast. This is episode number 5, and today is May 27th, 2020. I'm one of the hosts here, Eric Clark, Client Success Associate at SWICKtech, and with me is
Shane Kroening. Hey guys, it's great to be here. I work at SWICKtech with Eric as well, and we're just excited to jump into another podcast, talk a little bit about technology, a little bit about life, a little bit what's going on in the business world today.
Yeah, these have been a lot of fun. Our initial plan for this was to do these in person with a DSLR camera aimed at us and some fancy recording equipment. And then everything happened. So we've been rolling with it this way, and it's been effective. Maybe not as fun as doing it in person, but it's been interesting to use all the stuff as a technology company that we use to make this happen regardless. And hopefully people tune in because some of these episodes are pretty neat.
Yeah, I think it's been a great time. To your point, it doesn't really feel like we're doing this yet because it's all been remote, you know what I mean? So it's been like, yeah, we just record these sessions on the computer just like the rest of my day. We haven't like sat down, we don't have fancy mics or anything like that. So I think it'll be fun to switch gears and do that in the future sometime. But for now, this has been working great.
Yeah, I agree. Our topic for discussion today is why is technology or technology framework critical for businesses today with everything that's going on with COVID and the emergence of that, as we discussed a couple weeks ago. But before we get into all that, just Shane, talk about life. How was your holiday weekend? What did you guys do?
Man, it was weird. It didn't feel like a holiday, but it was great. It was crazy hot here too. It was supposed to rain the whole weekend, and then there was no rain, so I was thrilled for that. It was like 80s and humid. I say crazy hot, that's not crazy hot, but when we're used to like 60, I guess 80s and humid is really hot all of a sudden. But yeah, it was great, man. We spent a lot of time outside. We did some sports and activities, did some yard and housework, and just kind of relaxed. How about you guys? How was your weekend?
Fairly similar. Did some hiking, looked for some morel mushrooms. Didn't find any. I did stumble upon a herd of deer with the family, so that was kind of cool.
Oh, what?
A herd of deer.
Oh, herd of deer. Okay.
Yeah, like 6 deer just moving through the forest right in front of us. And I was like, wow, look at that. As a whitetail hunter, I was like, this is great. My family was like, whatever, they're just deer. And then we did a lot of yard work. We got some flowers and some perennials, and we did a lot of planting, and we restrung our outdoor lights that we have. It's just similar, like yard work and home project stuff. So good time to kind of do all that and kick back.
Was that a whole family hike?
Yeah, it was. Yep, I had
the wife, 2 kids, and the dog went.
Yep.
Not cats though.
No cats. I had my son in the little backpack carry-on in the front, and then our daughter walked along, and she stopped every 1.5 seconds to pick up every pebble and dandelion. So it was slow going.
Yeah, that's fun. That's super fun.
Yeah, it was nice. And now we're back, and it feels like today is Tuesday, but it's in fact Wednesday, so that's a little confusing amidst being confused about time in general lately.
Are you sure? Today I thought was Thursday for a minute, and then also felt like a Monday. So yeah, I'm all over the place over here.
When the weekends come, I'm like, I guess it's the weekend now. I don't have to sit in front of this computer. I can enjoy the rest of my house.
Weird situation we're in, that's for sure.
Last week I experimented with moving my computer to a different spot in my house for a little bit to change it up, and that was nice. I got a bit done doing that.
Yeah, I have a friend, we were on a Zoom call or whatever a few weeks ago with a group of people, and he's been working from home, and about halfway through this mess, so I don't know, he was like a month in or whatever, right? And he realized that sitting at the dining room table, he was getting zero work done because pets, kids, food, everything was right there. So he's like, so we have an unfinished attic, and then for some reason they have like this finished storage room on the other side of the attic. So he moved his office literally into this attic space where he has to go through an unfinished portion of his house to get to. And he was like, it was the best thing ever. It's like a separate place. Like I'm at work over there. So there's
And no one wants to get through the gauntlet of the unfinished space. So it's like he's
right. He's
totally
all
set.
by himself. Yeah. It's
That's
like
great.
it's a weird thing. I'm really curious to talk to people who have always worked from home and like see their perspective. You know, someone who's been doing this for years that just always works from home. Like, are they just laughing at all of us idiots as we try and figure this out? You know, they've got everything smoothly running. Who
Well,
knows?
the challenge is that even if they have like what's happened now is kids are home, wife might be
Yeah.
home or husband might be home, right? And so everyone's home rather than maybe if you're working from home and the kids are at daycare and your significant other's at their place of employment, you got the
Right.
run of the place. And now it's like everyone's invaded that office space. So yeah, maybe that's why your buddy was like, wait, I can't just do this at the table anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably the hardest dynamic for people who've got like kids in school and stuff. I can't imagine trying to balance that and working and still like operating a home.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, the teaching of the kids and getting them through the remainder of the school year as parents has been, I mean, very frustrating for most that aren't prepared to do that on top of everything they have to do for their day job and responsibilities. So summer break will be interesting because kids are home from school without any having to do homework. So maybe that'll be nice. They can just go do something else.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be weird. I don't have to deal with that, so we'll
Yeah,
see.
I'm not in the school age yet, but let's get into our topic. I think we have kind of two, like what is the framework for technology, but additionally, like let's talk about first what companies are working remotely. There have been some pretty big announcements in the last, week or two from some of the juggernauts, the blue chip companies in the tech space. Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Spotify are some that jump out to me that have kind of made this announcement that, yeah, we're forever working from home or maybe at least till the end of the year. I mean, these are some of the companies that have the best and most data in the world. So it's interesting if you look at what they're doing as knowledge workers. I think we fall into that classification as a tech company. But there's still need for a lot of people to be on site if you're in a warehouse or a factory or something, right? Or doing some sort of services like mowing the grass. You're not going to do that
Yeah,
from your house, right?
it's going to be really weird to think through this because so historically there's been there's always been the kind of two categories, right? Of there's like office employees and then like hands-on warehouse, manufacturing, labor, all that stuff. But everyone's always still been physically present for the most part, right? We just mentioned there's some people that have always worked from home, a handful, but that was like a rarity, right? For the longest time, it was like a really cool, neat perk if you got to like work from home for 1 day a week or something like that. And now we're kind of transitioning into this like weird time where everyone had to work from home, and now it's like, oh, well, that actually works. So should we be doing that more? And some of these big companies, to your point, like you just said, Facebook announced like I want to say 90 or 95% of their workforce will be working from home and for as long as they want, if they really want to. And that's going to bring in some weird dynamics, especially for a company the size of Facebook, right? Where they have like called a campus is what their office is, right? Like all these big companies use campuses because they have so many staff. Um, but you start to think about the economics of letting all these people work from home, and that brings in a lot of questions of, well, okay, now do I need all of this commercial real estate? Probably not, right? You don't need as much if everyone's working from home. And then it's, well, what if people work from different places? Can I pay someone less money to work from Jackson Hole, Wyoming instead of Silicon Valley? Like, so there's a lot of interesting questions, and I'm sure there'll be, a million opinions one way or the other, but it's kind of crazy to see how some of these companies are coming out. I think Twitter said their employees can work from home indefinitely.
Yep.
Couple other ones. Spotify announced through the year. I'm sure Google said through the year. Um, And there's some on the other side too, right? Like Microsoft has been willing to let their employees work from home through all of this, and they don't want to rush people back and stuff. But I want to say one of the, maybe it was the CEO. I should have like looked this up earlier. Sorry, but one of the guys at Microsoft came out and was like, "We're not planning on doing this forever. Like, we're not expecting most of our workforce to just work from home. You lose a lot of the office features, you know." So I don't know. It's going to be kind of crazy to watch it all play out.
Well, and one of the articles that we dug up in our show notes today was titled "Work from Home is Dead. Long live work from anywhere." And that opens up Pandora's box. Like, if we're all working remote, I think we've had some of these questions come up in our all company meetings. Like, do you guys even know that I'm in California right now? Like,
Yeah,
what
right.
difference does it actually make if I'm getting my work done and I'm present for these virtual meetings?
I think I was the one that made that joke, right? Like one of our colleagues was like asking about travel and stuff. And I was like, why not just not tell anybody you're gone? How would they know? You know, because we're all working from home. I was just trying to be
Or
funny and
backgrounds
make
and all
light of
that.
it.
Like,
But it's real. Like you literally could just go work from somewhere else and we wouldn't know. You could move to a different room in your house and just tell me it's a different room in your house when it's really like in a completely different house and I wouldn't know the difference, right?
yeah,
So
that's my other room. Yeah, room. But it's interesting that same article had mentioned that, there's still a number of people that do like the socialization of the watering hole at the office and that kind of stuff. But like if we are talking about work from anywhere, that does literally mean anywhere, including the office. So we talked about in our preparation, what types of things do we miss from the office or do we need? And that brings us kind of closer to, what are the critical fabric in a business today that we need to have? I mentioned, like, I have the most consumer grade printer I think money can buy at my house. It's pretty terrible. But I'm like, well, do we even need to be printing all sorts of things all of the time and binding proposals together, or should we be doing a ton more with PDF and DocuSign? Um, how much does that need to go? And we have a whole list to kind of get through here, but um, what types of things does the office supply to a worker that or an employee that you can either get or don't need at home?
yeah, and I think the printer one is going to be a really interesting category, not just printers, but things that fall into that weird like gray area of all of this, right? There's some black and white. There's some things you need, right? You need internet, so to speak, to work from anywhere or even from the office, right? For your average, white collar position or et cetera, where you're coming into the office, you've got a computer, you're working from the internet, you have documents and files and email, right? So you're collaborating with people outside of the company. Like all of that stuff is required no matter where you're working. But then you start to get into these things like printers and you start to question, well, do I really need a printer? Not when I'm working from home, certainly not. But then when you go back into the office, it's like, well, do we really need that many printers? Like, why were we printing so much? Just to waste paper? Like, so it's going to be interesting to see those things that kind of fall into that weird gray area. What happens to those? Are lots of offices just going to throw out the type of stuff that you no longer truly need, that you don't feel like you have to have when you're working from somewhere other than the office? And then what do you keep? What it like to your point, work from anywhere means the office too. So you still need some sort of tangible office space, right? And furniture, lighting, all of that goes into that, but also the technology, right? Like you still need to have computers available for your employees to work from the office. There's lots of, technology stuff we can get into, but you need a lot to make your internet and networking work at the office, your servers that maybe host things like files and stuff that people use. A lot of that is moving to cloud spaces, but you still need it, right? It's still like a tangible thing that you need to have. And so it's just going to be really interesting to see how that changes,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Do I need a commercial grade coffee brewing setup at my house with the amount of coffee I'm going through? And what about all the coffee I'm buying now? My grocery bill is going up quite a bit for that reason. And that stuff granted, we've had lots of conversations about the quality of coffee at the office. That was a big
I
point
wasn't gonna
of
say it. I
debate.
wasn't gonna say it.
But it was something that the office supplied. I didn't have to factor that into my day, but I sure as heck drank it, and we brewed a lot of it. There's just so many neat little pockets of conversation that exist in all of this, that everything's up for question and consideration. Um, and,
Yeah,
and if you're having an office at home, like, yeah, you probably want something a little bit more ergonomic than the chair at your dining room table, than the low dim lamp, right? Or whatever. It starts to get kind of interesting. And
well,
we
and
talked about,
everyone's different too. So people are going to have different needs, and different people are going to see different things as essential, right? To your point, some people are going to be like, I need to have my coffee, so you should pay me for my coffee so that I'm more productive and active at work, right? Which is kind of what probably where that came from in the physical office space. But then there's going to be other people who are like, I don't need coffee. Or if they do drink coffee, they realize that that's their own expense, right? So there's a lot of weird situations with that sort of stuff. Who knows where that's going to go? The really interesting ones are going to be commodities that people truly feel they need to do their job, right? Anyone can argue, I need caffeine or I need a cup of coffee, and anyone else can scoff that off and say, Eric, you're being ridiculous. You don't truly need coffee to do your job.
you haven't seen
And
me
that's
without
on you
coffee.
if you do, go buy your own. But then there's the things that, like internet service,
Hmm.
right? Like if I didn't have my own home internet service, we certainly wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I wouldn't be able to work from home though. I'd have to figure something else out. So then that begs the question of, well, should the company be paying for your internet if you're working from home? And then, I mean, you probably still do other things on your internet when you're at home, right? Whether you're streaming
Yes, how do
Netflix
you divide that out?
or,
Do you need like
yeah,
your own private network from the office that you connect into that ties back in or tunnels back or something?
or do you have two
And
completely separate internet services to your home? I mean, yeah, there's a lot of weird questions there. I think no one's been bothering to ask those or talk about those at this point because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But eventually, if more and more people start to work from home, those are going to be real questions
yeah,
that
they're almost
companies are going to have to answer.
yeah, they're almost treated like satellite offices at that point. Like I know, there's a number of executives, um, not that even that we would support, but if you think about an executive, like those were the people that had their own firewall, router, VPN, all of these um, what I'll call fancy technology needs at their quote unquote home office to be able to feel like they're really still integrated into the company's technology to function and do their job. Now that's kind of been um, that's just commonplace right now, right? It's
Yeah,
been decentralized a little bit, I think was the word I was looking for there, because now everyone's that executive that needs all of that stuff. And
yeah,
does
and I
everyone
don't.
really need all of that, right? Or depending on your infrastructure, if you really are in the cloud with a lot of things, maybe you don't need some of that. There are just a number of things to consider, and we're just asking the questions, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's crazy. We can sit here and unpack it, but even you and I have so many luxuries when it comes to working from home that I don't think we even realize the half of it, right? Like our our company is obviously crazy in technology, right? Like SWICKtech, that's all we do for the most part. And so we're fortunate enough that I have like a set of monitors at home and a docking station for my laptop. I already had a laptop before all this happened that, made it really easy and convenient to be
You
remote
already
and
had VPN and multi-factor authentication and cloud enabled and
yeah, all the security stuff is there for us, like all the equipment. I went and got my desk chair from my office, so I'm comfortable sitting here. All that stuff that we just kind of had. A lot of companies I don't think did, and they're scrambling right now, and they're putting band-aids on the problem, right? Like take your desktop home and plug it in and use literally your work computer at home, but then how do you like you can't do that long term, right? You can't go back and forth from the office in your house dragging your desktop back and forth. That's just not functional. So there's going to be a lot of people who are in this situation maybe worse off than us with the technology piece, and they're going to have to answer the question of how do we do this as a company? How do we move forward?
Yep. And it's hard to figure that stuff out sometimes. But there's prioritization steps you can take, and with the right partners, you can figure that stuff out. It doesn't need to feel so impossible. But
Right.
it is hard when it's, like you had said, everyone has different viewpoints, needs, and setups and home lifestyles. So an office kind of accommodates many versus when you flip that on its head, you have to accommodate a bunch of individuals.
Yeah, and each one, like you said, with different needs, it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be a whole new world, right? Like it's already obviously changing. We're still at home, even though like the stay-at-home order is lifted. We're still working from home. Um, who knows what it's gonna be like
Yeah,
next year?
the legal things that go into factor there, like some retail locations I've noticed have their bathrooms are open, some are not. Why is that? Is it because they can't clean them in between every, you know, patron that goes in there, or they don't want to deal with the legal ramifications of if something happens?
Right.
There's like again, it's another instance of it's just so different across the whole span of things. It's a bit like the Wild West. We're trying to all figure this out as we kind of conform to what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, no one chose to have a global pandemic, right? So it's been kind of forced down our throats to figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder how long it would have taken us to get here anyways. It's probably a lot longer, I'm sure. But what
Decades?
technology can you use to work from home? We mentioned a few. We mentioned VPN, and we talked about what type of internet you might need to have, et cetera. But as far as the tooling, like some of the main platforms, one that we obviously leverage heavily is Teams. However, we have used Zoom a little bit as an organization from time to time here and there. I know I've used it professionally, just in the business community because it's widely adopted. Slack is another one that I think may have seen some increase in usership. What are some other tools and things that you found helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of companies are relying on you mentioned Teams, right? So that's like Microsoft's suite of not remote technology. What's the like collaboration technology? Google offers a suite of that too, right? With their slides, and they have a phone solution as well. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can do that. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people are still behind these, right? They're still trying to work from home using just like email and phone calls and stuff. And that's been what's so eye-opening, where you see the Microsoft Teams usership exploding, right? Because now everyone's like, oh man, I need to be more functional. I need to be more productive if I'm going to get the same kind of work done that I did in the office at home. I was talking with someone the other day, and their company just moved to Google phone system. So they have a cloud phone solution, just like we're on Microsoft Teams. And they were, this was months ago when they did this, but they were like, I don't know what we would have done if we hadn't done that. We wouldn't have been able to operate. So it's really cool to see that some of these technologies that these bigger companies, right, Microsoft, Zoom, Google, have been pushing for collaboration and everything, like that truly was the future. That was where we were going. We were really slow in getting there, and unfortunately, we had to have a global pandemic to kind of push us down that path. But it's been kind of cool to see that those tools really do work, right? We live in Teams for the most part now at our company. We have Microsoft Teams for everything. We use it for just general chat. We use it for recording these podcasts. We use it for collaborating on different teams and posting announcements for the
Webinars.
company. We do it for meetings for the whole company, one-off meetings between just individuals or 4 or 5 people. All of our files are stored out there, right? So we're sitting here accessing all of our documents and everything through Teams. Like it's crazy how useful it is. We make phone calls, like everything. I can go on and on and on. There's so much stuff that I live in this app. It's literally one of my monitors is just my Microsoft Teams app because I use it so much all day
Two of
long.
mine are one browser, one native. Uh, it's incredible. But honestly, even just technology as a collective, outside of any sort of specific, Google Voice, Teams chat, Slack, Zoom. If you just think about the fact that every single person, I think, like at least, I mean, not every, whatever. Uh, I don't know what the percentage is, but most people have a smartphone. Um, the world is a mobile world. So even the companies that weren't in a good or a strong position to deal with this, like they still have technology to get them through it. It's just a little bit disjointed or disbanded and not under one roof. But I'm assuming the companies that maybe didn't have some of these other things in place, they're just using their cell phones, FaceTime, they can download those apps, right? There's
Yeah.
still ways through it for all those other companies, albeit probably not the most ideal way, but hopefully that's helped those folks see that the value in these other platforms that exist for business. But if you would think back to not having all these other advances, like there could have been companies completely dead in the water, but they're
Yeah.
still capable of navigating it. That's what's fascinating to me is that there's still companies that have been fully capable of dealing with it regardless.
Yeah, it's impressive. And it's interesting to think of like how much of it is the technology versus how much of it is just our human resilience, right? And ability to work through stuff. So that's been kind of cool to see as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were talking on a call earlier today, and we had brought up the fact that like this whole kind of thing, this pandemic has initially we had talked about how it compared to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And just recently someone had mentioned that it's really similar to the five or maybe it's seven stages of grief. And if you're going up five numbered model, it's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And to me, it honestly does feel like we've just come out of the depression portion of it and we're getting to acceptance. And we're now accepting this work from anywhere, work from home lifestyle, and people are adopting it and embracing it. Um, and that's just been pleasant to see.
Yeah, it's been really cool. And I mean, even to that point, like we don't know what it's going to look like, in 6 or 8 months or whatever, given everything that's happened. But it's nice to see that we're fully functional. We're at a place where everyone's kind of accepted it. They appreciate that we can still operate and function from home, and business is kind of now business as usual. It's going to be weird. I feel like I'm to the point where I've very happily accepted the work from home concept. Like I miss the office, right? I miss seeing people and the interaction and stuff there. But given the circumstances with this pandemic and everything that is happening, I have zero interest in rushing back, right? Like we're opening the office, we're letting a few people in at a time now at our company, and there's a lot of red tape, right? There's like restrictions, and you're gonna have to wash your hands 77
Who can
times
be
in
at
order.
which desk when, and we have like a whole chart of who sits
Yeah,
by different people's to
disinfect
stagger it.
this, disinfect that, like clean
Yeah.
your workstation, and that's all good stuff. Like we need to be doing that if you're out in public, but all of that makes me not want to be out in public, right? Like it's not worth it. Like why would I do that when I can just stay home?
Well, I talked to another IT professional in a different state, and he works for a trucking company, like a national trucking company. He said, "There's so much red tape in going back to the office that I'm not going to do it because I have to fill out a form, I
Yeah,
have to do a request, it has to get submitted and approved, and then I have to follow all these protocols and procedures." He's like, "Yeah, I'm good. I just don't need to go back to the office because
yeah,
it's too hard." He's like, "Forget it. There's nothing so compelling that I need to go through all that red tape to make that happen."
yeah,
And
it's
I
not
wonder
worth
how
it.
many other people are dealing with something similar to that. Like, oh, if we want to go back to the office, sure, fill out this chit, get this approved, submit it for da da da, deal with HR, careful of this, we don't have a legal problem. You have to, there's just, and then the risk though, too, not even just the bureaucratic side of going through all those things, but the genuine true risk that could be there that you could actually still get and or infect someone. Let's not forget what we're actually dealing with here.
Yeah, it's completely out of our control. So I just, yeah, I don't know. That's crazy to me to think too. Like we have a company of what, 30-ish people, and we have to have plenty of red tape in order to get back into the office.
Mhm.
Imagine some of these larger companies, right? Like, I mean, obviously the big tech companies that we mentioned are trying to go more remote, probably to avoid some of the bureaucracy that's involved in all this. But there's going to be other companies that, have thousands, if not tens of thousands of employees. How, like, I can't even fathom how they're going to have to manage that to try and
Pencil
figure
sharpening of the lawyers has got to be.
Man, and that takes me back to like higher education and stuff too. I used to work at a university, and universities are struggling right now as it is because they have to send everybody home, right? So they're not getting room and board, and all the other, ancillary things that people pay for when they're physically on campus at a university. But on top of all of that, now they're talking about how they might be losing international students in the future because why would I travel across the globe and risk, getting stuck there away from my family if something like this happens again? All of that is going through people's minds. Meanwhile, the university I worked at, it was 35,000 students, 8 or 10,000 faculty and staff. That's so many people in one place all of the time, right? That's literally like a concert or a sporting event every day.
That's valid, right? Sharing
It's,
spaces like bathrooms and cafeterias
yeah,
and
sharing everything, walking past everybody, everywhere across the whole campus.
handrails. I mean, people just going up a staircase or like getting in an elevator. Yeah,
Yeah, so I don't know, I don't know how they're going to possibly be able to. You can't go back to the same normal, right? Like our lifestyle at our office, maybe down the road will be 100% back to the way it was
if we're all
in some
vaccinated and we're
spaces.
comfortable and everything is kind of subsided,
Yeah, but we're
but
never going to
then
get there
too
with
much has
big
happened to
crowds.
consider like you've really acclimated to what we're calling the new normal so much so that to go back to the old normal is a whole different challenge then. And it's like, well, it's hard to put what's the saying, like something back in the box, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. There is a saying there. My
Like
mind just goes to
genie
cereal
in the
because I've been
bottle.
eating a lot of cereal, which is not a good thing. But like once you open that cereal box, it's not going back in perfectly normal ever again. It's all poopy now, and you wonder how they ever did it. That's funny.
Yeah, so it's crazy, right? Like we have a 30-person company, so our new normal might be pretty similar to our old normal as far as like interaction with coworkers and stuff down the road. But like we were talking about this morning, they're deciding on if they're going to keep or cancel the Wisconsin State Fair this year, right, in August or whatever.
And yeah,
And I don't know if you've been to the Wisconsin State Fair. I'm sure you have. I have, and it's
the
before the global
sea of
pandemic
people.
it was
Yeah.
before the pandemic, it was unpleasant to stand in that many people and rub shoulders with literally like every person you passed. There's no way I'm gonna go do that now. So it's gonna be weird.
It is. Yep. Yep. Well, I think, we covered the topic well. We could probably talk about this for the rest of the entire day, and it'd be fun to get some opinions and other thoughts from folks that maybe tune in. If you have any feedback or any additives to this, you can always send us an email. I think marketing@swicktech.com would be a great place to send it to. And we'd be happy to share your thoughts on the next episode that we do. Please check us out on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from, Spotify, etc. And let us know what you think.